Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch, and I am in Hawaii now, just arrived here tonight, but I wanted to do another video here because I see some things that are a bit interesting with this storm system, and I mean, this thing is a monster. It is spinning up right off the coast, and you can see Oregon, Washington to the right of the screen. Something interesting is that we do not have any wind advisories or anything across the Willamette Valley right now, and I think that really needs to be called into attention, and I believe they should have at least wind advisories up. We're going to dive into some of that, and we'll do a quick video and take a look at everything else as well. And again, one more look here with the Doppler radars overlaid. Something I want to highlight is that things are very saturated here across the area, and there is no definable cutoff as far as what precipitation amounts you need to allow for easier uprooting of trees, but clearly it is December, and we've gotten decent amounts of rain, not exceptional amounts, but you know, in the last 24 hours leading up to the storm, we're going to be over an inch for places like Seattle and a lot of places for the coastal area. So when these winds do start blowing, there is going to be the chance for some uprooting action here of our tall trees across the region. Now, taking a look at where we are right now, this is the windy app about 10 p.m. You can clearly see the winds along the Oregon coast up into the Washington coast right now. Winds have not started for the Puget Sound. We had some pretty gusty winds, as I mentioned earlier, across the northwest interior. Bellingham, I think, gusted over 60 miles per hour, but the wind's already starting to pick up a little bit here across some of Oregon as well. Looks like 27 miles per hour out of the south there, very close to Portland. So these winds are going to be kicking up here over the next few hours and in through tomorrow morning. If we take a look here, just kind of drawing attention to that, the National Weather Service talks about this in the mesoscale precipitation discussion, atmospheric river activity to continue to impact the Pacific Northwest going on into early Thursday morning before weakening. And of course, that is the precursor to our winds. And again, saturated soils, not good for uprooted trees. And this is 48 hours, but almost all of this fell in the previous 24. And you can see, again, Seattle, by the time we get towards Thursday morning, is going to be up over an inch in a lot of places, between an inch, 2, 3 for some of the coastal areas, some of the higher terrain there, southwest BC, also in a lot of Vancouver Island. Now, taking a look at the latest, this is the European on the left versus the GFS on the right. So I'll put this into motion, and you can see that we have pretty good model agreement now. European a little bit more favorable of a track there for some very strong winds, and we're approaching that magic 12 millibar pressure gradient between Portland and Seattle, and we could have some very intense winds. I'll show you those wind speeds here in a moment, but you can see we are starting to get that better model agreement. And then we look towards Friday's storm. Looks like things have trended a bit further south, which is good news here for a lot of the Willamette Valley, but that's still a pretty potent storm through southwest Oregon. We'll revisit that one. I'll do a more comprehensive briefing tomorrow. This is the high resolution rapid refresh. This is actually hot off the presses here. Let me update this, in fact, and we'll go ahead and run through the motions on this. And letting this update here, you can see that 92 millibar low. It's still a decent pressure gradient between Seattle and Portland there, but this is closer in line with what the GFS is showing. And if I'm not mistaken, the HER is a product of the GFS, but a little bit different from what the European is showing. But however, we've got the track down pretty good, and that's still a very potent low right over Vancouver Island, bringing some powerful winds up the Puget Sound, some of the coastal areas. And you notice this pressure gradient across the Willamette Valley. That is why I think a wind advisory should be up. And I'm sure you see the speed here in the models in a moment. Looking at the North American model, pretty good model agreement, as you can see. Look at that 981 right over southern Vancouver Island with a very power-packed pressure gradient. You're talking about potentially 12 millibars there, maybe even a little bit more if it comes in a bit deeper. And again, a strong gradient across the Willamette Valley also. Now let's start to look at the wind speeds here quickly. So now I'm going to back this up. So here we go through tonight. Look at this. I mean, this is not far off. You're already starting to see some 50 mile per hour gusts on the North American, and that stretches up through Portland as well. And again, you start to get up over 55 for the Willamette Valley. They haven't had a lot of strong winds here this year, and again, the saturated soils out there could be problematic. So I think they should have wind advisories up right now. Last I checked, they did not. And you see those strong winds move up across some of the Puget Sound. Some lower 50s out there will definitely get your attention. Very strong winds. It's a good thing this storm didn't happen earlier in the season, but again, with the saturated soils, we could have some uprooting. If you start to get above 55, 56, 57, 58 miles per hour, or up towards 60, you definitely increase the odds that we get some of those trees falling And again, I'll update this again right now to try to give them the benefit of the doubt. Nope, still no wind advisories or anything for the Willamette Valley. So heads up, Willamette Valley, anywhere Eugene, Albany, Salem, Morgan City, Portland, Vancouver, Woodland up towards Kelso. Be careful. We got winds incoming here, potential gusts, 50 plus miles per hour. And now looking at Seattle, they do have the wind advisory up right now. And they talk about storing your items and whatnot. And we got winter storm warnings for the higher terrain. We'll go over that in a little bit more detail, but it has been snowing for a majority of the day across the higher terrain. In fact, let me just click on that really quick and we'll just have to see what it says here. What's the timeline on this? Until 10 p.m. on a Thursday. So, okay. Yep, that works. Snowville right there around Snoqualmie Pass. So if we look at the high resolution rapid refresh, you see you're kicking off some winds mid upper 40s, lower 50s here, Willamette Valley, a little bit lesser here for Portland, but you can see it moves up some of the sound there pretty powerfully. Seattle, I think 56, mid 50s. That starts to be problematic when you get the saturated soils out there. So again, very windy on the coast and potentially some damaging wind gusts through the Puget Sound. You see that surge come right up through the Puget Sound there, and that goes up a little bit closer to Mukilteo and gets up towards Everett with some gusts well up into the 50 mile per hour range as we go through a very early tomorrow morning. If we take a look at the latest the European, but look at that 53 for Seattle. You can see some widespread 50s, and a lot of times the European underdoes these by a little bit, so I wouldn't be surprised if we start to get up towards the mid 50s, and that's when things start getting a bit crazy. And again, you can see the Willamette Valley on the European is strictly into the mid 50s. That would be a big deal. It'd be tree damage, power outages. And if I back this up, look at this bent back occlusion here. Watch this streak of wind just aim right at Cape Disappointment in the mouth of the Columbia River. There was some very powerful winds. So yeah, wild storm coming in here. Now, what do I mean when I say bent back occlusion? Well, this is the developmental stage of a low pressure system. Just an example. You can see the cold front trailing and the warm front out in front. And then you see the mid-latitude cyclone starts to develop a bit here. And then it becomes basically mature almost at this point. But this is the warm front, cold front. And with the cold front and the warm front combined, you start to get the occluded front on the when it wraps around the low. So you can kind of see that. The occluded bent back occlusion right there. It was powerful pressure gradient. And a lot of times meteorologists will call that the poisonous tail of the storm. So you can Google bent back occlusion. You can read to your heart's desire on just what else this entails there. But that's what I'm talking about when I mention that bent back occlusion and wrapping around that low pressure system. And if we take a look at the HRRR, so look at Seattle, very early in the morning. Again, you're talking about before most people are up, 4 or 5, 6 a.m., some gusts into the upper 50s possible. So be careful if you're sleeping around big trees. It sounds like a joke, but we've already killed people earlier this year from falling trees, and it happens, when you're in your home and you're least expecting it, maybe when you're asleep. Boeing Field as well. And it's interesting here because this is probably the shortest term I can remember seeing. Some of these, couple ensembles have gusts up over 70 miles per hour in Seattle. And that's if the low takes the perfect track out over the Puget Sound and the pressure gradient lines up just perfectly. The low comes in a bit deeper than forecast. You could get some of these extreme gusts. And you see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's worth mentioning. There's about 8 of the ensemble members that show gusts potentially 60 miles per hour or more. And the ensemble mean is squarely in towards the low 50s. I also want to mention here the avalanche forecast by zone. Look at this. They got high for everywhere. So if you're going off in the backcountry and you're thinking you're going to go snowshoeing or whatever, snowmobiling out there, or skiing, snowboarding, what have it, hiking off in the backcountry, just be prepared and click on these before you head out. The channel's doing great here. Look at this. We're getting up towards 91,000 subscribers here. So anyway, I will do a better video here tomorrow. I just wanted to get the word out and a little bit of an update here. I am in Mountain View, Hawaii right now. I'm hoping the volcano starts to perk up a little bit here in the next couple of days. It was going pretty good this morning, but it died back, and I'll go out and get some photos of that. So anyway, hope you guys are having a good night. Otherwise, yeah, it's pretty late there already. It looks like it's 10:30. So I'll get this video out as quick as I can, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow morning.